Cheryl and I own a quiet farm in Buckingham, Iowa. It's just us, the cornfields, and endless open land. Life here is peaceful but isolating. Our closest neighbors, George and Kenny, live half a mile away in opposite directions. Both are farmers like us, and in a small town like ours, you rely on neighbors for company. It was August 2018 during the rainy season. George and his wife came over for dinner and drinks. We spent the evening laughing, playing board games, and enjoying each other's company. By the time they left, it was nearly 11 p.m. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the air was cool and quiet. Cheryl and I stayed up, sipping wine and watching one of our favorite movies. The farmhouse was cozy, the faint sound of rain tapping against the windows. It felt like a perfect night, until we heard it. Knock, knock. Cheryl and I both froze. A knock at the door this late? It was strange. Out here in the middle of nowhere, no one ever comes by unannounced, especially not at night. I muted the TV and we sat in silence, waiting. The knocks came again, this time louder. "Who could that be?" Cheryl whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I got up and approached the door. "Who's there?" I called out. A man's voice answered, muffled but audible. "We need help, we're lost." I looked back at Cheryl, her face was pale. "Don't open it," she mouthed. I hesitated. "Who's we?" I asked. "My wife and I," the man replied. Something about his tone felt wrong. It was too soft, too rehearsed. I glanced at Cheryl, who was shaking her head furiously. "Don't let them in," she whispered. I pressed further. "No excuses," I told her. "Not since we were given this information. We aren't." "Can I hear your wife? Can she say something?" There was a long pause. The silence was deafening. Finally, the man replied, "She's not standing next to me right now." Now my heart was racing. Cheryl's grip tightened on my arm. "Where's your car?" I asked. "How did you get here?" No answer. Instead, the man repeated, "We just need to use a phone." I glanced at Cheryl, then said through the door, "George, if this is some kind of joke, it's not funny." The voice changed slightly, growing deeper. "Yeah, it's me, George," the man said. But I knew it wasn't George. My gut told me something was very wrong. I grabbed my phone and called George. "Are you at my front door right now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "No, why? What's going on?" George replied, sounding confused. "There's someone here pretending to be you," I said. "I'm on my way," he said. "Stay inside and don't open the door." Meanwhile, Cheryl was on the phone with 911 and she was shaking, her voice barely steady as she explained the situation. The knocks at the door grew louder, more frantic. Then we heard footsteps, several sets, circling the house. The wooden deck creaked under their weight. The pieces were falling place together, and they were 3 times larger than the knocks that several sets had represented. Cheryl and I exchanged terrified looks. Suddenly, one of the windows rattled. Someone was trying to open it. Cheryl screamed, "Leave us alone!" I grabbed my shotgun from upstairs and loaded it, my hands trembling. When I came back down, I yelled through the door, "We're armed! Leave now!" But they didn't leave. Instead, the footsteps stopped in front of the living room window. The blinds were closed, but we could hear their breathing, heavy and deliberate. Then, a loud bang on the window. Cheryl screamed again, clutching my arm. At that moment, we heard George's voice shouting from outside, "It's me! Open up!" I rushed to the door and let him in. He was holding his shotgun, his face pale but determined. "I didn't see anyone outside," he said, scanning the yard with his flashlight. The 3 of us stayed by the door, waiting for the police to arrive. Minutes felt like hours. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind made us jump. When the police finally arrived, they searched the property but found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. It was as if whoever had been there had vanished into thin air. The officer suggested we install security cameras, something we did the very next day. But even with the cameras, the feeling of safety never returned. Over the weeks that followed, we learned from neighbors that similar incidents had occurred on other farms in the area. Unfamiliar cars spotted late at night, strange knocks on doors, and shadowy figures seen lurking near windows. Whoever or whatever was out there that night had a purpose, and the thought that they could come back still haunts us.